Syngineering is an intentional new wave of change. The water of the wave is not new, but the force on the water is fresh. And so, may the force be with you. Context is everything, and so I'll begin with the genesis of Syngineering. Ken Wilber coined the term flatlander to vividly demonstrate the need to use multiple lenses in order to attend to complex issues. And if we hope to achieve even a minimal understanding of the rich dynamics we swim in, we need to attend to more than one dimension. One dimension will not keep us from falling off the edge. A quote from a book called How We Decide. Since Plato, philosophers have described decision-making as reason or emotion. We carefully deliberate or we blink and go with our gut. But neuroscience breaks open the mind's black box, and we are discovering that that is not actually how the mind works. Our best decisions are finely tuned blends of both feeling and reason. And the precise mix depends on the situation. When we're buying a house, for example, it's best to let the unconscious mull over the many different variables. But if we're picking a stock, intuition often leads us astray. The trick is to determine when to use the different parts of the brain. And to do this, we must manage our mind rather than allowing our mind to manage us. We need to act intentionally and in the way that we use the mind as a tool. What's the best thinking for this presentation? Step away from critical, analytical thinking, judgmental thinking, loosen any strong rejections or attractions to any of the ideas that I share, because either of those positions stops our brain from taking in additional data. There's this really fascinating thing that happens when we strongly agree or disagree with something. Our subconscious mind will do everything that it can through selective perception to make our conscious mind right, regardless of whether it is erroneous in its thinking or not. The only thinking we need at this whole conference is curiosity. Learning and creativity are frontal cortex activities, and we have this amazing thing that all we have to do is get curious, and the frontal lobe cortex lights up like fireworks just by getting curious. This is your invitation to be curious. I'm with a group of about 120 death midwives involved in a 3-year experiment in the global organization development community assessing its purported death. Our autopsy suggests that its gradual demise started in the 1980s when organization development sold its soul. And its soul was to help organizations become more aware of themselves, which if we do that with organizations or individuals, it naturally mobilizes intrinsic learning and growth. OD, it seems, became a tool for efficiency, reengineering, downsizing, outsourcing, and right-sizing in service of quarterly profits as opposed to meaningful purpose. All of this to the detriment of those who toil to create great wealth. Oh, and I'm way behind on the screens, aren't I? My apologies. Thank you for your patience. All of this change in organization development was to the detriment of individuals who toil to create the wealth, as illustrated by the salaries of executives at Walmart, Amazon, and Apple that are thousands of times more than their frontline employees. Our opportunity could be to seek in our everyday work, our family, our community lives, to be the change we want to see. Though science is now moving to recognize what indigenous communities, mystery schools, and Masons have long held, that we are both meaning-making machines and material beings. Where you stand on this question will make a difference in how you labor over change. It appears that modern physics has definitely decided for Plato. For the smallest units of matter are in fact not the physical objects that Democritus proposed. They are in fact possibilities, influenced by the context as well as human presence. In Plato's sense, they are ideas. Recognizing that meaning is the root of all we are is, I believe, the basis of creating a world that is led with purpose, the purpose of prosperity, of enriching the human spirit, and protecting the planet. The practice of organizing has morphed as our consciousness has shifted from the hunting and gathering era, the agrarian age, the industrial age, the information age, and now I would suggest to the emerging relationship age. With each age, technologies have increased our ability to control nature and simultaneously increase the complexity and volatility facing organization. Our world's institutions are failing. Old models of control and command no longer fit and are ruthlessly trying to survive. Increased complexity and volatility requires us thinking about how we work, informed by insights of the emerging sciences of quantum physics, complexity theory, neuroscience, as outlined, for example, in Meg Wheatley's Leadership in the New Sciences. Albert Einstein said we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that we use to create them. Last century's rigid rules and linear thinking that's the basis for many of our institutions must be replaced by more experimentation and deeper understanding, moving away from experts, problem solving, the right answers, to all employees asking the right questions, learning and adapting to create meaningful and sustainable solutions. That is called design thinking, and it provides the responsiveness to handle today's increased complexity and volatility. And new thinking is going back to the natural world, attending to cycles, ebbs and flows, trial and error. And we have all but forgotten these things in the rush of industrialized life. And the natural world sometimes is hard to see in the on-demand consumerism of the world we've created. When we slow down to the speed of life, we can actually attend to our whole selves and use the tools nature has given us, in addition to this marvelous mind, our bodies, our gut brain, our heart brain, our breath. They can be all brought into play for richer experiences of life and better solutions. Charles Darwin noted, in the history of humankind and animal kind too, those who have learned to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. We have amazing new tools for collaboration, like the conference application, which creates opportunities not possible before. We have methods of scaling engagement, dialogue, and democracy using technology and facilitation. For example, after 9/11 in the United States, we brought 4,500 residents together of the New York city area for a one-day workshop, divided them into groups of 10 with a facilitator and with a computer and with preference indicators, and had them review the 6 options for the new World Trade Center. The cool thing about that kind of process was they rejected all 6 and came up with a 7th that was a much better solution for the New York residents. New thinking, design thinking. Patriarchal rules of Frederick Taylor's scientific management gave way to Edward Deming's process-focused continuous improvement projects, and then Peter Senge's system thinking and learning organizations. New approaches of design thinking and design process move past organizational problem solving and isolated interventions into more agile and holistic and continuous change approaches driven by interdisciplinary thinking with technical expertise and the awareness of the ecosystem for faster and better outcomes for customers. With the advent of the decision accelerator and rapid prototyping, in 3 days, we can design solutions, and then in 3 30-day increments, iterative increments, we can implement those solutions. We have used that to create new strategies, create new organizations, new lines of business, new functions. This is the future now, and it is all about agility. And agility, there are 3 kinds of agility. There's product and service agility, enterprise agility, and strategic agility, and they are not the same thing. The definition of agility. Well, first, the myths. There are 3 myths I want to dispel. Agility is not speed. It is not leadership. It is not a culture initiative. The definition that's emerging is that agility is an organization's built-in capabilities to continuously sense into the changes of its environment and rapidly identify, test, and implement responses to disruption, innovation, and operation. And agility comes from the cumulative agility capability in the organization's components or functions, its processes, its people, its technology, its systems, and its structure. This is the most common kind of agility, the product and service agility with backlogs and sprints and iterations and deliverables. This is enterprise agility, and it is where we use agile principles for ERPs, HR, procurement, IT. And then strategic agility is where the organization attends to the innovations and the disruptions in the ecosystem. This requires leaderships to step out of focusing on operations, because they've actually hired smart people to do that, and really attend to those things that need to be attended to ensure the survival and the thriving of the organization. Got to look down at my timer, see how I'm doing. Syngineering is a word that we coined for the framework of step-by-step activities to build agility into the very DNA and fabric of any organization, regardless of their external environment, which we call landscapes, their corporate culture, or their strategy. The synergy, the first part of it, incorporates the human dynamics of agility into any change process and to the social part of the design of the work, and builds sustainability, capability into the resulting culture. The engineering part embeds agile capabilities into the configuration of the structural components of the system, the processes, the people, the structure. Agility is done differently depending on the industry landscape, the business strategy, and the resulting corporate culture. So it is not about doing agile in a one-size-fits-all approach. And it is sustainable when it aligns the business components with the strategies and the customers, when it builds agility into each function and component of the organization, and when it is adapted to these different specific corporate cultures. And importantly, for those of us who are change agents, effectiveness requires us to model agility in our work. So the things that Syngineering focuses on as the prerequisite before you get into any significant change is to look at the landscapes, look at the strategy, and look at the culture. There are globally, generically, there are 4 business landscapes. Mass production, which is based, and again, this framework is based on volatility and complexity. Mass production, which many of our traditional organizations are, is where we operate in simple and stable environments. Knowledge work is where we operate in complex but stable environments. Mass customization is where we operate in simple but unstable environments. And co-configuration is where we operate in complex and unstable environments. And the important thing here is, where are you? Where is your industry? And where is your organization in relation to that? And are you matched or not? There are 3 global business strategies. Again, all kinds of variations and permutations, but customer segmentation, product leadership strategies, and operational excellence. No strategy for most businesses is purely any one of these, but they generally come in a stack. And you must pay attention to that, because that's going to affect the next dynamic that we want to know about. Again, if you're going to do change, you have to use as your true north the business strategy. And frequently when we're doing change, we have to stop and get clear on the strategy before moving forward. That's a requirement for good change. Corporate cultures, there are 4 when we look around the globe, and they happen to align with those 4 landscapes. The directive is where the focus is following orders. The participative in the knowledge arena is where we follow rules. That way, rules are used to distribute the ability to allow leaders to delegate. Flexible is where we follow principles. This is where we do prototyping. And adaptive is where we adapt the principles to the given customer and context. And then, I'm sorry, okay, so if we look at the culture, the strategy, and the landscape, we then can make a determination if it aligns or if it doesn't align what our work is, as well as determining the methods of change. Again, there's 4 generic kinds of ways of changing in the world today. The best fit for purpose change approach in organizations that are directive is project management. In participative, it's group process. In flexible, it's rapid prototyping. And in adaptive, it's sense and respond. So I offer those ideas to you today as a beginning of a way to think comprehensively about how we approach change and how we tailor change to each specific business that we're doing change with. Because cookie cutter don't work. Stereotypes and generalizations never work at the individual level. Thank you for your attention.